r/AskReddit. Serious, people of Reddit, what's your if I'm going down I'm taking you with me story? I was rock climbing and this guy who was my belayer for the day was kinned off a dong. Well, no surprise. Dongwood spends most of his time flirting with a cute girl who is friendly but seriously not into him. He gets chewed out by our lead for not paying attention, which means he continues to not pay attention as he is incapable of picking up cues. Well, there's me, 25 feet or so off the ground with my rope slack and feeling my hand slipping because I'm just running out of steam. Now, having told him 3 times to pick up the slack, I look down and see he's completely ignoring me to chat with this girl again. My mistake was looking down. As I reach to readjust my weakening hold and slip, the rope shoots out of his limb, sausage-like fingers, and I began to fall. I know a properly tied off rope shouldn't do that. I don't know how he ducked that up too. My only thought is if I'm going to fall, I'll damn well land on him. Well, I did. I landed straight on his cushy, a-hole body. I was barely injured. He was taken to hospital after having 80 odd kilos land on him from 2 stories up. I never happened to see him at that rock climbing club again. I once worked for a startup company, and they missed one of my paychecks. It wasn't a gigantic deal to me because they were a bit strapped for cash and we had a big release coming soon. And I was decently paid anyway, so I just said duck it. They then fired me 2 days before release, making it sound like I had been inadequate despite zero indication from them that I was such before that day. So I made the proper legal arrangements to recoup my missing paycheck and told them I'd be going to labor and industry. I had already filed a complaint, because if they were going to fire me after I worked 70 hours a week for over a month to try and meet their deadline, out of nowhere, I sure as duck wasn't going to cut them the slack of an entire paycheck. I got my paycheck. They went out of business because they were corrupt and had been misusing investor funds for years before this, unbeknownst to me, and I laughed my way to the bank. Super simple, but I am notorious in my friend group of having a fear of water. I'm okay in pools since you can, hopefully, see the bottom, but even shallow lakes, rivers and oceans are a no-go for me. Some friends ended up renting a boat and wanted to take it out on the lake and begged me to come out. I kept telling them no way in hell would I ever willingly go out and sit in the middle of a lake. Finally I caved because I dunno. They were friends and really wanted me to go. Someone said it could really help me face my fears. Even though I didn't plan on getting in the water. I'm not going to wear jeans to the sunny beach, so I left my wallet, keys, and phone in the car. Within 10 minutes of getting to the middle of the lake, Buddy who suggested I face my fears, and I think his brother, asked me if I got the time. I shrug and tell them I left my phone back in my car. They both lunge at me and start throwing me overboard. I latch on for dear life and fight as if the river is lava, because to me it essentially is. I eventually realize I'm 100% going over and there is nothing I can do except let go of the railing I was gripping onto and instead grab them both as I pulled back and forced all 3 of us into the water. Getting back on the boat was easy. It had a little ramp and ladder for climbing in out, and you can bet your ass I was the first climbing back up. The brothers got mad at me because they had their phones in their pockets and I ruined them. But everyone quickly pointed out that they pushed me in the water knowing I hated it and that they deserved it. They argued that they intentionally tried to make sure I didn't have anything electronic on me, but everyone shut them down. They were allowed back on the boat when they apologized. My friend apologized and I actually did chip in to help him get a new phone later. But his brother swam back to shore and got even more upset and demanded I help him with his new phone since I helped his brother. But he didn't feel bad or think he did anything wrong, so duck that guy. When I worked as a case manager as an MHMR, we had a new department supervisor come in and she was the worst. Every single person but myself and another case manager quit within a month of this woman starting. I really liked my job and it was also my internship site for my master's degree, so I needed to stay employed there. Since so many people quit, this lady got permission to hire, and it soon became obvious that she wanted to get rid of anyone she hadn't hired and have a department full of people she had personally chosen. Surprise, surprise. Most of her hires were shitty just like her, on top of being an awful human. She also had very little background in mental health and gave truly awful supervision when it came to clients and getting them the services they needed. Since I wasn't a part of the people she had hired, I knew she would try to get rid of me, so I made sure to document everything. Anytime I staffed a client with her, I would document her advice in that person's chart as well as the actions I took due to her advice. I also kept a detailed paper trail and would email her questions about policy so that I'd have record of her answers, which usually were the opposite of what our policy actually was. She even started walking to my desk to verbally give me answers to the questions I sent via email, and I'd have to make up some excuse as to why I needed her answer in an email. Like I would tell her a parent or client had asked and I wanted to be able to give them a verbatim answer. I could tell she hated it. Anyway, several months later, I staffed a client with her who I believed needed to be hospitalized and wanted to run it by her first as she demanded. The kid was suicidal, homicidal, and impulsive, which is a recipe for disaster. She disagreed that this kid needed hospitalization and told me to refer the client to another agency because apparently the client was too high risk for us but didn't need to be hospitalized. I tried to get her to agree to just calling crisis to assess her, but she denied that as well. I documented what she told me to do and referred out. Well, literally a day later, this kid brings a gun to school and gets in a ton of trouble, obviously. Thankfully he was stopped as soon as he stepped through the metal detectors. Mom is pissed that my agency just referred him out and didn't get him the help he needed, and a day later he plans to shoot up his school. My supervisor's supervisor is pissed as this is a PR nightmare and comes down on my supervisor, but since I was the direct care staff assigned to this client, my supervisor blamed it all on me. I ended up getting fired for my negligence. However, the higher up of course carefully went through this kid's records and saw all of my documentation regarding the awful decisions my supervisor had made, which led the higher up to investigate even more. Basically there was Medicaid fraud being committed. This lady was lying about her mileage and being reimbursed way more than she should, and all this other lovely stuff. So she was fired as well. I was asked to come back but duck that place and its corruption. When I was stationed in Korea, my sergeant threatened to tell command I was drinking underage. Fortunately I had pictures of our squad drinking and he was present, so I told I would show them to command if he told on me. Duck kitten by the books and co's. When I was in Korea, my company commander and first sergeant found me in the bars on my first day in the company and I was still 19. We shook hands, bought each other drinks and had a good time. When I was in university I did a 6-month exchange program in Spain. I took 4 classes while I was there and all had an equivalent credit at my university in Canada. I was getting A's in all of my classes except one class where I was really struggling and getting a failing grade on an assignment, and that class finally broke me. The prof for this class was the worst. It was an intermediate Spanish class and he was marking us like he thought we should all be writing Shakespeare. Not only that, but how he told us to complete assignments versus how he marked them would be completely incongruent. He expected us to be doing things that he never taught us and he should not have been expecting in the first place from an intermediate Spanish class. I realized it wasn't just my problem when the girl from France, whose Spanish was far better than anyone else in the class, started crying one day after she got an assignment back and begging to understand why she was marked so poorly. He just pointed at her assignment like that was the only explanation required and then ignored her after that. There was no way to drop the class or switch into another because of the way it was built into the exchange program, so I decided I would start emailing the teacher constantly after he gave us assignments, clarifying every little point, coming back with follow-up questions to try and figure out what the hell it was he actually wanted from us, spending way more time on assignments than they deserved. That way if I failed I would have this record showing how hard I was working in the class to bring to administration if I needed to fight it, and all the discrepancies between how he provided assignments versus how he marked them. A couple of days before the final exam, teacher evaluation forms came around and I could tell by how long it took all of us to turn them in that I wasn't the only one in the class unloading on this guy. This was his first semester teaching at the university, so if his teacher evaluations didn't go well he wouldn't be invited back. If I failed this class then at least that a-hole wouldn't be doing this to someone else next semester. We get our final marks a week later and I've managed to pull a C out of my ass. Great. Just squeaked by. Then with final marks dispersed he's allowed to see his teacher evaluations. He sent an email to the entire class that night and lost his friggin' mind. We're talking sections with all caps, multiple exclamation marks, telling us how ducking stupid we all are and how we don't know what we're talking about. He's the greatest teacher alive and we're all just bad students. Complete meltdown. The next morning I found another email from the university this time, stating that Professor A-hole is no longer with the university and will not be welcome back again, followed by numerous apologies regarding his behavior. I inquired about our grades in light of what happened, but I guess they weren't that apologetic because they refused to change them. Go figure. Current job. Previous manager. I was on a team of 2, and when the lady I worked alongside with quit, they decided not to replace her. I have a young child, who, as children so often do, gets sick a lot. Being the only person on my team, and the most important role for our office to function since it is literally the first step in all our processes, I had a very hard time whenever I used my PTO with short notice. I had given my manager multiple ways to fix the issue, but she never would hear any of it. She also was in a remote office, so she had zero clue what I did with my day. She finally sent me a very angry email basically telling me I could not use my PTO for emergencies all the time when my son got sick. I wrote back a long, detailed list of every method I suggested to fix the issue, along with the fact that I was the only person in my position for months, and that our company policy states in bold letters that using PTO because you or your loved one is sick is not only acceptable, but encouraged. My manager responded to my email by stating she would forward my concerns to HR and that I should probably polish up my resume. But HR was in our office that day, for the first time in 6 months. Great coincidence, right? So I went in, asked if I could speak about an issue concerning my manager, and explained everything as it happened. The HR rep had this look on her face like she was going to murder someone. She asked me to forward the entire email chain to her, which I did. Then she called me back to talk to her. A few people I talked to were aware that the manager and I had issues, and the lead of every team in our office basically told the HR rep that the entire office can't function without me and that I've been doing the work of 3 people for 9 months. Later that day, my manager sent me a very angry message over email basically saying I was fired and that I was to pack my things immediately for failing to do my job and because I was causing a hostile work environment. I forwarded this to HR rep and then walked to her office and asked if I should pack my stuff. She looked at me and in a single, sweet sentence said not a chance. She's royally ducked, and that's basically how my manager went from making $80,000 a year to being fired on a Wednesday with no compensation, no benefits, and no way to collect unemployment. All around a productive day. When I was in 8th grade, we had to create a presentation on a book we had just read, including a skit from one of the scenes. Here's the best part: we were forced to work in groups. Being an introvert, I hate group work. What I hate even more is when your group mates don't do their work. The day we were assigned the project, we decided to divvy up the slides equally. It was a Google Slides, so we could all contribute to the same document. The class ended, and I had already finished one of my slides. One boy only changed the color of the title, and the other 2 didn't do anything. 2 days later, I had finished all of my slides. Nobody else had done anything. I offered to start the script for the skit since I had finished, and asked for the others to contribute. Nothing. A couple more days passed. I had finished the skit as well, and all of the other slides were still empty. Finally, the night before the assignment was due came. I had hoped that even a title had been added. The slides were still empty. I finally decided to just finish it myself. I was up until about midnight, and the slides were not the best quality. Finally, presentation day comes. Of course, my group mates felt absolutely no remorse for doing no work. It was our turn to present, and my group mates nominated me to present. I finally decided to show them the consequences of their actions. I told them that we were all to present the slides we were supposed to work on. They obviously didn't know what they were doing and were extremely unprepared. My grade went down, but theirs went down even more. My grandma lived on a main road in Miami. She had grapefruit trees in her yard that grew huge grapefruits. When I was little, my older brothers taught me to roll the grapefruits out into traffic and watch them splat as the cars drove by. They couldn't see where the fruits were coming from because we hid behind the bushes to launch them. It was kinda like reverse Frogger. The goal was to get a good splat. When I was 15, grandma's health was declining. So my family stayed at her house for a couple days to get it cleaned out and ready to sell. I decided it would be fun to take my younger brothers out and show them grapefruit splat. After about 10 minutes of us hurling double-digit grapefruits out into traffic, one of us rolled a big, fat grapefruit right in front of a cop car without paying attention. We all ran to the backyard, but when I looked out front, my youngest brother Barry was still out there. Apparently he froze up. I come walking up hurriedly to the police officers and tried to play it off. What seems to be the problem? Officer, I asked, who are you and where are this boy's parents? He asked. I replied I'm his older brother. My parents are at the grocery store, so I'm babysitting until they get back. The cop was super chill and goes okay. Well, your brother was rolling grapefruits out into traffic, so we just stopped to explain to him why that's dangerous. I looked over to Barry and winked to let him know that we were about to be off the hook, and I said to the cop, I'm so sorry. I'll make sure to have a talk with him and it won't happen again. Well, Duckin' Barry misread my wink as a taunt. So he looks up at the cops and goes, he's the one who showed us how to do it. He ran away when you stopped. And my dad's not gone. He's inside. The cop looks down at me with a huge grin and says, let's go see dad. I proceeded to get a huge ass kicking for bringing my brothers into something dangerous, then grounded for lying to the cops. I was at a church camping trip for boys at Yosemite. One of the guys in charge was new and a real douche. He made it his goal in life to punish every kid. I was a real rule follower, so he couldn't punish me and he started getting angry about that. He would even drop comments like your turn is coming, etc. Now, when I was younger, I was really thin and small, but in my mind I was like all the other kids and mentally tough. So this got me in trouble. I would get injured on these trips and the head guy was always getting in trouble with my parents for not keeping me safe. So one of the rules is that nobody can ever be alone. If you are caught alone at any time, you are in trouble. So, we're getting the campfire ready for lunch, and some kid comes running up to the group and says that there's a woman bathing naked in the river. All the kids get up and run to go see. So, to not be alone, I have to go with the group. Now, I don't go to the edge and look, because I didn't feel like it was right to go spy on the poor woman just trying to enjoy nature. Anyway, douche leader sees his opportunity and says that since I got up and went over with the group, I was also in trouble, despite the fact that I had no other choice. Punishment at this camp was holding a giant rock over your head. Somehow, I was the only one that got in trouble, not everyone else that looked, proving that he didn't care about actual rules but just that he had power over everyone. I was supposed to hold this rock over my head for 15 minutes and then come back. Of course he was too lazy to oversee punishments, so I was supposed to do this alone, which is another problem, since there are bears and perverts around. No kid is supposed to be alone. So finally, since I didn't deserve this punishment, I was going to take this guy down, so I dropped the rock on my head on purpose. Then I just lay there. I could feel a large bump rising on my head. I must have laid there for about 35 minutes. Finally, they realized that I didn't show up for lunch and someone asked where I was, and then everyone ran over to see me laying there with a rock next to my head. I said that the last thing that I remembered is that my arms were getting weak holding the rock over my head. Then the leader checked my head and found the bump. He was livid, because now he had to tell my mom I got hurt again. When asked why I was holding a rock over my head, I made sure to let them know that it was douche leader's punishment. He tried to deny it, but 25 young voices called him liar simultaneously, since they had all endured the same punishment. Douche leader was stripped of his power and spent the rest of the camp as just another camper. In fact, he called someone and left a day early. It was his first and last activity with the group. In 7th grade, my teacher decided to use process drama to teach about the Holocaust. He told us we can hide anywhere in the building, and if we successfully evade him looking for us, we will get a bunch of extra credit. Conversely, if we are caught, we will get 5 points for each other classmate we rat out. I hid successfully in the computer class under a spare TV card that barely fit me. My soon-to-be not friend had chosen poorly in the same room and was easily found. Upon walking out I very clearly remember him yelling, "Wait, Yams is in the corner under the cart." I can't remember being so mad at someone. Ratted out for a mere 5 points. I yelled at him and Def overreacted. The lesson being a process drama. That was kind of the point. To experience the fear and potential rage at your neighbors for ratting you out. For those of you who don't know, this lesson style is to give the student first-hand emotional connection to whichever content you'd like to teach. It's incredibly effective. Too long didn't read. I was taken down along with a classmate and lost extra credit. I worked at Geek Squad at a failing Best Buy. One day, a service order I had created was shown to me by a coworker. "Hey, looks like you made a mistake here. You check this box." But that doesn't make sense given what they brought the PC in to be repaired for. Me. "Yep, sorry, I meant to check this other box here. Let me fix it." Another coworker. "Hey, can I see that before you fix it?" She takes it, walks over to the copier, makes a copy of it, hands the original back to me, disappears to the back with the copy. Puzzling. Suspicious. Her and I were cool. Always got along great. Worked well together. Later on, I quizzed her on it. Things aren't going that shitty for us yet, but they will get there. Trust me, you should be doing the same thing. Document every single mistake you can find on literally anyone you can. You're going to need it. So I started doing the same. I had a hidden folder stashed somewhere. Copies of other people's simple mistakes that happen all the time. Forgot to get a signature on this. Skipped a step on that. Checked the wrong field on a form. Turns out, for a full year or two before they finally decided to shut the store down, management was firing anyone and everyone for any reason they could, in order to reduce headcount, or avoid potential severance if the store shut. I dunno. Have to go ask them to be sure. But they couldn't fire anyone in Geek Squad without firing everyone else they had dirt on. "Hey Bill, can you explain this mistake you made? This is going to get you fired." "Bill, while we're talking about this, let's review whom else needs to be fired for simple mistakes." Dumps out folder full of dozens of mistakes from numerous other employees. They couldn't exactly fire the entire Geek Squad, or all of customer service. We shared the same corner/area in the store. They needed to reduce headcount but not fire entire departments. So we were left alone. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.